Hello, everyone. Welcome to Blab and Bitch, a podcast where no topic is off limits and we always keep it real and raw. I'm your host, Bianca. Let's get into it. Where to even begin? Honestly, what brought me here was I had a psychic reading, and the psychic told me that I need to podcast. The point of this episode is to introduce myself so you have an understanding of where I come from. We're going to talk about parts that are maybe a little bit more challenging to talk through. But honestly, these are the most important conversations we can be having. This is where growth happens, change, evolution, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. This is how we become better human beings is by talking about these things. In the sound realm, in frequencies, in vibrations, it's been a known thing that love has the highest frequency or the highest rate of vibrations. But there's actually a higher frequency of vibrations, and that is authenticity. Authenticity vibrates 4,000 times higher than love does. And so if you are trying to make yourself known on social media or in real life just resonate with more people, it comes down to being authentic, real, and raw. And that is the goal of this podcast. Let's get started by talking a little bit about myself and my story and what brought me here. I was born and raised in Michigan, and I've lived in LA for almost 6 years now. My upbringing definitely shaped me in a lot of ways. I grew up in a pretty conservative family, and so I just wasn't really exposed to much out of the ordinary growing up. I went to a Catholic high school, and then for college, I didn't leave the state of Michigan. I went to the University of Michigan. I was in Greek life, and there just wasn't a whole lot of exposure to different types of people for me still. I feel like I kind of clung to the same bubble that I had always seen, always grown up with, and that was kind of it. Then I had done some internships out in LA, and I knew I wanted to be out here. So I moved out here after college, and I lived with two girls who were from California but went to University of Michigan with me. From there, a lot started to change. I feel like post-grad is such an interesting time. It's an interesting place to navigate when you come from the Midwest or just like a small town or somewhere where you're not exposed to a lot. And I think that can be really challenging to navigate, especially if you don't have anyone close to you that's done it before. I'm living on the West Side. I'm living in Brentwood in LA, and I'm starting to see different types of people and experience different types of things that I was just fully not exposed to with my upbringing. And it was a really fun time. It was very experimental. I feel like I was very open-minded to just kind of throwing myself into whatever. At that time in my life, I was also working in corporate America. I was working at IBM as a technical solutions specialist, which essentially is the person that assists the sales rep. So like I would come in and I would do demos of an environment for a client, proof of concept sort of work. Pretty boring. It paid well, which is why I went into it, but definitely was not my passion. But I'm expensive and I knew that I had bills to pay. So that is what we did. I worked in tech for four and a half years, doing the whole thing. And then at the end of COVID, I had started posting content on TikTok. And it was one of those things where I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm just going to do it. I need a creative outlet, and I do have a photography background. So let's just do this. Like, this is embarrassing. It was so cringe at the time because I feel like it wasn't as socially accepted still then to be like posting shit. But I didn't really care at all, honestly. I feel like all the people who were judging me from my hometown, I like couldn't give less of a fuck. So I was like, what do I have to lose here? Literally nothing. So I just started posting everything, lifestyle, fashion, beauty, workouts, everything, just whatever. I think a lot of us feel like we have to do corporate America, and that's the only way to make it, and that's the American dream. And then when you do make money in it and you're still not happy, you're like, well, now what? And then, you know, you see so many people now doing the freelance thing and you're like, well, how did they get there? And how are they getting there? And It was so cringe. Like, I feel like everyone kind of has to go through like this cringe period as they're like finding their voice and growing their platform and just figuring out how to use the tools. Yeah, it's embarrassing, but like everyone goes through it. And I feel like you just have to know that like you will get through the cringe period, but like you have to do it. It's just like a rite of passage. Everyone goes through it. So being able to not give a fuck was really important. People were talking mad shit. I feel like when I first started, like my videos were getting shared around, and I just knew that that was 100% people judging me. And obviously that's going to make anyone feel insecure, but I was like, I don't really care, because eventually hopefully this works. And it's kind of like you have to be a little bit delusional. You have to kind of just lean into it and let it do its thing. And if you're authentic and raw, it will resonate. And I think that is something that I had to learn throughout the process. I think when I first started, I tried to like be so posy and only show like my best angles. And then when I started posting more raw content is when I started to like actually grow and have an audience that was engaged with me. Because at the end of the day, like life isn't perfect, and that's not reality. And people don't want to see that. Like people want to see the behind the scenes. Like people are nosy. They want to know what goes on actually in your life. And so I'm an open book. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I will tell anyone about my life. I'm not a private person. And so for me, I didn't really have an issue. I was like, I'm just going to post. So I started by posting everything. Then what stuck for me in the beginning was beauty. And so I started posting more beauty content, and I followed beauty influencers that inspired me. And then I would post similar sort of content with like my own flair to it. And then from there, I started getting reached out to by brands, clean beauty brands specifically. I've always had really sensitive skin, so I feel like I was just well educated on the subject because I kind of had to be. And so that did well. Brands started sending me things. I started by just getting gifted things and then creating content, posting content, building out my portfolio, creating a website from there, and then creating a media kit. And then I started pitching to brands once I had enough work in my portfolio. I also have friends that are in the industry. And so before I was really getting invited on my own to a lot of things, they would bring me to things, and I would create a TikTok, come with me to this event, and kind of just like fake it till you make it sort of thing. And it worked. And then I started getting invited to a whole bunch of things that were more than just clean beauty. Because from there, I started posting more just lifestyle content. So my biggest thing with it all was like, I didn't want to niche down, but like also everyone told me in order to grow that I like had to find a niche. And so like I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, and for me what stuck off the bat was the clean beauty. And so I went with that, and then from there, once I felt like I had somewhat of an audience, then I started posting more things. I got more into fashion just because it kind of went hand in hand. And I was really hesitant at first about posting anything fashion related just because I've always had my own insecurities with my body. And I find that a lot of women, you know, can relate to that. And so I just didn't know if I wanted to like look at my body from every angle on camera. But I will say I reached a point where I just like honestly stopped caring about that as well and just started posting. And really I started by doing UGC because I didn't really have that many followers. And so I started doing user-generated content for brands, and it didn't pay great in the beginning. Like literally I started by being paid like straight up $75. But like you got to start somewhere, and I feel like it's one of those things where it's like you almost have to take 2 steps back to get 1 step forward. And it's a grind. Being a creative is a grind. Going from corporate America to starting to do this was hard. I started doing UGC. That finally picked up. My personal page started to grow slowly. And that's another thing that I think people have a big misconception about, is that like you have overnight success. Like, no, it's a journey, and it takes years to build a platform. Like I've grown very slowly, but very steadily over the past year of doing this freelance. And I'm proud of that. And I also wanted to make sure that I wasn't putting goals and pressure around myself. Like I was like, I'm just going to create and it'll find the people it needs to find. But I wasn't like, I need to have X amount of followers by this month or else. Like, no. For me, because I was still working corporate, I had financial security. And so I did kind of have that freedom to be like, it's whatever, I'm just experimenting. So I started to post more and more, and it started to gain some traction, and I started to get in with some more notable brands. And from there, I kind of reached a point where I was like, I don't have the bandwidth to keep doing both anymore. I kind of need to make a decision here on like one way or another. And it was so scary. So scary. Leaving a 6-figure job that honestly was not super demanding, but it was enough where I couldn't do both, was a hard decision. But for me, it was like, I already knew that this is definitely not what my purpose in life is, for sure. But I also hated everyone I worked with. I think I had like maybe 2 friends. And so I was just like, what am I doing? Like, this is so not me. I feel like I'm living like someone else's life. And I can't carry on. And the final straw for me was a male coworker. Oh my God, so much verbal, emotional abuse. And it's crazy because I reported him to HR like 3 different times and nothing happened. And HR like came for me. Basically, anything I said was used against me. And so to all the girlies out there who are navigating corporate America, keep in mind that HR is not there to have your back. They're there to have the company's back. And that sucks. I mean, that's not how it should be, but that is how it is. And I learned that the hard way. And so that was my final straw. I was like, I am so done with this. I do not need to deal with this. I'm over it. I quit corporate America in September of 2023, September 20th to be exact. And since then, I have been doing freelance content creation and modeling. So September, October, November were really hard, I will say. In May, I had my bachelorette party. In June, I got married. In July, I went on my honeymoon. So there wasn't really a lot of time for me to like prep and like be doing outreach and like ramping up. I was just kind of like, I'm so done with this and like I'm going to take a leap of faith. Obviously, I was in a privileged situation to be able to take that leap. I had saved a lot because I had a high-paying job in tech, and my husband also works in tech and is a little bit older and was making great money. And so I completely acknowledge and understand that my situation is privileged and not everyone has that opportunity to do that. I realize that. With that being said, that was my situation, and I had that opportunity to throw in the towel and to start anew. So I did. The end of September, October, November were really hard. I honestly, during those months, applied for unemployment. Such a gift, something that I'll probably never get to use again in my life. So I was like, I am absolutely taking advantage of this system because I will never get to benefit from this again. So I did. While I was receiving unemployment, I was just posting like 3 to 5 times a day and doing so much outreach, all the things. By December, things really started to pick up a bit, and I was getting brand deals and I was making some money, and I was like, okay, thank you, universe. Like, because I was starting to worry. I was like, did I misread the situation? Because I felt like this is my calling, this is what aligns with me, and like the universe will provide, right? That's my methodology on if you're doing what you're meant to do in this lifetime, the universe will always reward you. And so it started to pay off, and I was like, okay, I got this. January rolls around, and I get a really good deal to create content for a brand on a monthly basis. And I was like, awesome. Like I have some stability. I'm making, at least this much money. Great. I am such a type A person. I grew up like always getting A's and always working really hard and like being competitive and really caring about all of that and always having a plan. And so this was the first time in my life where I was like, I am really just like freeballing this. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what I'm doing, but like, I'm going to try to just live in the flow and see where that takes me. The best thing I could have done. If I could have told myself that like 5-10 years earlier, I wish I would have. So if there are any other very type A girlies out there, I understand you and I get you, but like loosen the grip of control. And that's what I think it comes down to as well, is I was trying to control everything in my life so much that like I couldn't live in the present because I was like, no, this isn't how it's supposed to go. Then I'm just blocking my own energy, my own vibration, my own creativity. And so I told myself, we are going to go back to being a kid. We are going to be childlike and playful. And that was kind of my mantra through it, was like, just be playful, just be playful. I am playful. I am childlike. I am creating what feels authentic and natural to me. And it was the first time in my life that I just let myself lean into anything that felt right. I was painting, I was drawing, I was singing, I was creating music. I was doing literally every creative outlet. And for me, I think because I allowed myself that space and that time for myself to just be a kid, I was able to find like what really aligns with me and like where I want to go with it. New content creation was going to be my main thing because I just felt really drawn to it. I knew that I was somewhat good at it. It came naturally to me, and I've always loved editing ever since I was a kid. I was on iMovie creating bullshit as a 10-year-old. So I kept creating content, and at the same time, I naturally fell into a very health and wellness scene and started attending some sound baths. I'd lost one of my best friends a year prior, and that was really hard. And for me, a really good outlet was breath work and sound baths. I started attending a lot of these, and it just really resonated with me. And so I decided that I wanted to get certified in leading sound baths. And this kind of came out of nowhere. I was like, I mean, I've never done anything like this, but sure, let's give it a shot. I go through a training program in April. It was one of the most transformative periods of my life. I went into it being like, yeah, I'm going to get certified in sound, and then I can like lead sound baths. And I came out of it being like, holy shit, my whole world, like my whole perspective on life has changed. It was really crazy. Shout out Natalie Valle. She is the one who trained me. She's one of my dear friends now, and she's just the most beautiful angel spirit that I've ever met. After the sound baths, I'm starting to lead some classes. I should preface with, I do have an instruction background. I played competitive tennis starting at like 8 or 9 years old. And then I played in tournaments every weekend, and then played one doubles in high school, won states, and then went to college, went to University of Michigan. And at that point in my life, I didn't want to keep playing. I had a lot of friends on the club team, and I was just kind of like, I think I just want to do college. So I took a break, but I did coach for like 8 years. And then in college, I got into spinning. I taught spinning throughout my time in college. And then post-grad, took a break, went to corporate America. And then now it's all, coming full circle. Got certified to lead sound baths. And I was just very much in a more like somatic movement space in my life. And so the things that were resonating with me were the breath work, the sound baths, yoga, those modalities. Now I'm currently getting certified to lead Pilates, which I'm very excited about. I have taken Pilates for 9 years. I got into it in college, and I absolutely love it so much. And I also really miss like that style of instruction as well. So that is some backstory about my life. That was a very long-winded way to get here, but I don't know how to be concise, clearly. And that's okay. So I did put together a few questions that I asked on my Instagram, what people wanted to hear about and know about. And I picked a few that I'll briefly answer. The first question is, How do I deal with toxic friendships or recognize when it's time to let go? And how can I build stronger, more supportive friendships? This is a big one in your 20s. There is so much change on a personal development level for women in their 20s. And as human beings, we don't like change because change is scary. Change is an unknown and it's uncomfortable. But unfortunately, the only way to grow is through change. And the only way to become like a better version of yourself is really to embrace that change, because through change comes enlightenment, and it's not easy, but it's necessary for personal growth. I have dealt with so many falling outs with friends, and it honestly sucks. Like, friend breakups are so hard because it's like you're mourning a friendship, but like they're still alive. And like people always talk about like romantic relationships, but like no, friendship breakups are so hard. My biggest thing in my 20s was being able to set healthy boundaries with friends. I grew up not knowing what a boundary was until I was probably like 22 and went to therapy for the first time. That was just not something that I had ever learned from my parents, friends. So like I didn't really understand what boundaries were or anything. So I think the biggest thing is like setting healthy boundaries for yourself, because the people that don't accept and respect your boundaries aren't good people to have in your life to begin with, or to keep around if they are in your life. And I think for me, that was one of the biggest indicators of who's actually here to be my friend and who's not. It's interesting. I found that instead of saying yes to everything, I started saying no to things that I actually didn't want to do. And being a notorious people pleaser my whole life, this was like such a challenge to be like, no, I'm not going to go to that party with you. And I definitely rubbed friends the wrong way, and I definitely lost friends over it. But at the same time, the ones that were real friends did not care. If anything, they respected me more for respecting myself. And that's kind of what it comes down to, is like when you're setting boundaries for yourself, it's because you have respect and love for yourself and you're putting yourself first. And if you're not putting yourself first, no one is. So just keep that in mind always. You have to have your own best interests. So if it doesn't feel like it's aligning, just don't do it. And even if it seems important, like for example, let's say it's your friend's birthday and you are just having so much social anxiety that you're like, I can't do this right now. A real friend will understand that. If I was to reach out to that friend whose birthday it was and be like, I am so sorry, but I am just really struggling today and I can't make it to your birthday. I love you so much, but I just can't do this today. A real friend would say, oh my gosh, are you okay? Is there anything that I can do to support you? And of course, that's totally fine. Whereas a fake friend is going to go gossip behind your back, say she's such a bitch, like she clearly doesn't appreciate me, she couldn't even make it to my birthday, blah, 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 right? Night and day difference. Real friends will respect you. Real friends will understand when you need to take time to yourself, even if it's an important day for them, okay? Straight up. So I think for me, it's recognizing when someone isn't respecting you and isn't treating you how you would like to be treated is when you kind of gotta kick them out of your life, you know? And I mean, this goes hand in hand with how to create stronger friendships. I mean, for me, it was finding community in spaces that I enjoyed. Whether it was going to Open, which is a breathwork meditation studio, and just connecting with people naturally there, or going to your local coffee shop and chatting with other locals. It's like, go to spaces where you feel comfortable and supported and can be yourself, and you will naturally meet people. If you're into, art, go take a pottery class. It's like, just if you're into sports, go to a tennis clinic. Like go do activities that are wholesome, and you will find good, wholesome people who are enjoying the same things as you. Who are you going to have a deep conversation with at a club? You're not. So it's like, go to places that are conducive for those activities, and that's how you'll meet cool people. How can I deal with imposter syndrome in my career? How can I build confidence to pursue my passions unapologetically? Imposter syndrome is real for everyone, and I think this is something that like we kind of forget, that like life is a funny joke, and like literally we create our reality. And so you are whatever you say you are and whatever you believe you are. And I also believe that us as human beings are meant to be creators and meant to be connected to others. And so I think by remembering those two things, you're like, I can do whatever I set my mind to. And again, there's something about being like a little bit delulu that has to happen when you're definitely first starting off. And I can understand like the hesitation. But I also want to remind you that being a newcomer to a new field is also a really exciting, cool place to be, because you're coming in with like a fresh new perspective that the person who's been doing this for 20, 30 years like may not be able to see or understand. You know, it's just like a different perspective. So staying authentic to yourself, and if you don't know something, like obviously asking for help, but like also trusting yourself that like you can do anything that you really set your mind to. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's like honestly the truth. I quit corporate America at 26 to do content full time. I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. I just started posting, and like that's kind of how it goes. It's like trial and error. You just start posting things, or start whatever your field is. You just start putting things out there, and it always works out. And if it doesn't, then maybe that wasn't what you were supposed to do and you weren't aligned with that. And great, you tried that out and now you know that's not what you want to do. So I think just being able to remind yourself who you are as a person, what your interests are, and the right opportunities will come to you if you're living in your truth. Again, I think it's also like fake it till you make it. Like have fake confidence. No one knows the difference. And eventually, just from like repetition and doing it enough, like it'll feel natural and comfortable, and you will be confident doing it. Just starting is the biggest step. Like literally me on this podcast, like I've wanted to do this for so many years, but again, I just like was making excuses for myself. So I feel like we love to make excuses for ourselves. So drop it and just start. Just start. And also, we're constantly evolving and changing as people, and your career path can also change as you go. And so I think being able to like also allow yourself to just do what feels right and not have a fear of judgment is really important. Like think of when you're a kid and you're drawing, like you didn't care, like you were just drawing. Like I feel like as adults we're like so much harder on ourselves, like, oh, it's not perfect or it's not good enough. Like, bitch, no, just create. We're meant to be here to just create and do. And so I think by doing the things that resonate with you is the purpose and the goal. What are ways to nurture my mental and emotional wellness on a budget? There are so many free resources for this. One of the biggest ones for me is breathing. Sounds very simple, and it is. And it's a tool that we can all utilize. So there's many different types of breath work. I'll just hit on one for right now. The box breathing method, you inhale for 4, you hold at the top for 4, you exhale for 4, and you hold at the bottom for 4. This is a really great nervous system resetter. If I'm ever feeling overwhelmed or anxious, I will take 2 minutes and do this breathing pattern. So first and foremost, controlling your breath is so huge. Movement, natural endorphins from movement. You can go on a walk for free. You can go on a run for free. You can do yoga, mat Pilates. You can do any of these modalities for free in your house, outside in grass. Like it's free and accessible. Also, double win if you're outside in the sun and you're doing yoga or walking, because the sun is also amazing for your mood. Another thing is the food that we're putting into our bodies. Obviously, you have to pay to eat, but we all need to do this. I understand that cleaner food can be more expensive, but it's one of those things where like you either pay the price now or you pay for it later with your health down the road. So I am a firm believer in paying a little bit of a premium for better quality produce. Also, if you live in an area where there's farmers markets, I would suggest, if you're trying to ball on a budget, going at the end, let's say the farmers market closes at 2 p.m., going towards like 1:30 to 2. Like, these farmers don't want to load all their shit back up. So you can negotiate and bargain with them at the end. So if you're really trying to save, I would say go at the end of the day and you'll get better deals on produce. Meditation. Meditating is the biggest thing that you can do to improve your mental health. Absolutely. It's night and day. I start every morning by meditating, singing a mantra, and journaling. I set an intention for every day, and that right there is going to set your day up for success because you're going into your day with an intention. You're going into your day with like a positive outlook on life versus like waking up, scrolling on my phone, like sitting in bed. Habits are habits, and creating healthy habits are the most important thing that you can do, especially in your 20s, because this is when you're still so impressionable. It gets harder later in life to change those habits. So like this is the time to introduce healthy habits. I love the Bija mantra, which is the seed mantra, and it goes along with the chakras, and it's like Om Nam Bam. When you're singing it, it's using your vagus nerve, which goes all the way from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes. Goes through your whole body, and when you activate it with a Om or a big sigh or anything that's activating the back of your throat, you are instantly calming your nervous system. So this is a really great reset too. There's so many different ways to lead that healthy lifestyle, but these are just a few that come to my mind. Okay, last question. How can I learn to trust and embrace my own intuition? And what does it mean to reclaim my voice and assert my boundaries? Oh my gosh, a woman's intuition. Like, don't even get me started. A woman's intuition is never wrong. That gut feeling that you get, trust that. If there was like literally one thing that you could take away from this podcast, it's like, trust your intuition. It is always right. If something feels off, it is. Like, it's as black and white as it gets. There's no gray area there. I feel like we live in a society where we're taught so much that, like, you know, it's the patriarchy and women's places in the kitchen and blah, 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 blah. And I feel like for so long, we've kind of like suffocated our gut instincts and our intuitions. And it's been viewed as like very woo and like not a real thing, or like we have to think logically because that's how men think. And that's how the world has framed everything always, is based off of the male perspective. And I think when you shift to a more feminine perspective, it's much more in touch with your emotions. And leading with emotional intelligence is huge. There's a place for both, 100%. But I do believe that women are much more in touch, like with the mind-body connection and with emotional intelligence and self-awareness of life. So that, I think it's a learned skill as well. I think it's something that we can always improve and get better at. I think it's something that I'm still actively working on. It's crazy. I got off of birth control in February because I had a gut instinct, my intuition telling me to get off of it. I had been on it since I was a freshman or a sophomore in high school. So like 12 years. And I don't know what it was. And I thought about it for like a year getting off of it. And then like something was just like got louder in my head telling me to get off of it. So I was like, I got to see this out. Like, I do not want to get pregnant, but there's just something telling me that I need to get off of this. So I listened to that, and lo and behold, a lot changed. First and foremost, my energy levels were night and day different. I had permanent brain fog, and like I had no idea that birth control was causing that because I had been on it since like 14 years old. It's like, how would I know otherwise? I get off of it, and all of a sudden I'm like, I can think clearly, and I have so much energy. It's insane. So that was the first thing I noticed. My libido went way up. Everything in my life was different. It was like all of a sudden I was seeing the world clearly and in a different light, and everything felt lighter, and I felt more in touch. And for me, my connection to like my womb, it was crazy. Like I felt so disconnected from my body before. And this also goes, you know, hand in hand with like eating disorder. I struggled with an eating disorder from high school all the way through college. through 26. So I'm like just through it now. And so it's still fresh, but I feel really happy with the relationship I have with my body now. But I was feeling so disconnected from it. And then I was abusing it and hurting myself and just not loving myself. And I think when I got off of birth control, it was like, this is connected to me. Like, this is me. And like, this is my home. This is my shell and on earth. And what am I doing? Like, I love myself. What the hell? And all of a sudden I got this like overwhelming amount of just love for myself. And that was pretty cool. And I think just like leaning into your power and knowing that you deserve to be here and you deserve to use your voice. And people need your voice. They need it. We need to hear your thoughts and your opinions and your views on the world. It's so important that we get new perspectives. Where women hold their power is in their womb. And so I was so numb for all of these years. And then all of a sudden I was like, wow, like I feel energy and power here. It was empowering. It was truly such a gift. I'm not saying that everyone's going to have that experience getting off birth control. God, I hope no one else has that experience that I had. But that's my story and that's what happened to me. As women, being able to stop being so passive and just be straightforward and upfront. So instead of saying like, oh, I was thinking about maybe we go and do some shopping at the mall today. Instead, be like, I want to go shopping at the mall. Like, just being more direct. Like, I feel like we add so many filler words and try so hard to like keep self-awareness in mind, like as we're speaking. And then like sometimes the message gets lost and we come across less confident and less secure because we're not really speaking, we're not communicating truly and authentically. So I think learning how to be more direct and learning how to really voice what the fuck you think and not what you think others want to hear you think. And not thinking this is what others want me to say, but like this is actually how I feel and like this is what I want to say. Anyhow, if you made it this far, I so appreciate you being here. This is such a fun new journey for me. I really hope that this can just be a safe space. I definitely want to continue to ask you guys what you want to hear more about. Again, I'm your host, Bianca, and I will see you all next week.